Welcome back, builders. We're going to have a quick little bonus video for you today. I'm just going to show you how I fix these defective trigger lock clutch levers with epoxy putty. And this stuff is really strong, so it actually holds really well. And it only has one job, and that's to hold the clutch open, where a lot of these levers nowadays, this stopper is useless because it just goes right past this notch. Not only will this fix that, it will actually give you a little bit more clutch travel. So in situations where you have an upgraded clutch system with a heavy-duty preload spring, using one of these levers without this fix, sometimes you'll have the motor still dragging on the rear wheel, which will play hell on your idle and your clutch pads. So this will give you more travel, and it'll let the clutch lever stop in the proper position. Alright, so we got the Redemption bike here, and it has the same defective trigger lock clutch lever, where the little paddle here with the 3 notches just goes straight past this indexing notch. And the biggest problem with this is that when you're riding the bike, you end up fiddling around with it, trying to get the clutch locked in without going too far, and that's a distraction you don't want while you're riding. Now, you get used to it after a while, and eventually you'll figure it out, but I just don't want to deal with it anymore. So since this is such a cheap and easy fix, we're just going to go ahead and do it. Now, you just take a little Phillips head screwdriver, unscrew this, make sure you hold on to this trigger because it is spring-loaded and that spring can fly off. So we're just going to let our screw drop free here. Okay. Pull off this trigger, make sure we catch the spring. All right, that's it. That's all we need. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so the first thing I'm doing is I'm scuffing this up with a bit of sandpaper so the epoxy putty has something to hold on to. Don't really got to go to town on it. That should do just fine. Use a little bit of just rubbing alcohol, a paper towel, and I'm just going to wipe it down. Make sure any grease residue, oil that might be on it is off. Now I'm going to use quick steel epoxy putty. JB Weld has a version. There might be others. And like I said, because this is not a high stress situation, pretty much any epoxy putty is going to work because this stuff is super strong. So we don't need much of this stuff. This is too much, but since it's all I have left, I don't want just a little bit left in the container. I'm just going to go ahead and use it all. And we're just going to knead it together until it's mixed thoroughly and you have a nice dark gray color. Now once this stuff starts to feel like it's heating up, you know you've got it pretty well mixed and it's ready to go on to whatever part you're working on. And it heats up pretty quick. It also sets really fast after it starts heating up. So make sure everything's ready to go before you start kneading this together. So I'll just start at this bend and work my way out. I want to try and make it even on the top and bottom. Admittedly, the first two I did were a lot cleaner than this. Every time I turn a camera on, things turn to mush. But here we go. Now we need to let this set. I'm going to let it set for about an hour. We're going to come back and clean it up, shorten it, add our notch. All right, so we got a little Dremel with a cutting bit. You could do this with sandpaper if you're not lazy, but I'm lazy, so I'm just going to clean this up a bit. All right, so I'm going to give it a test fit here just to make sure that it will go in the release position. Now I used way too much. I got all this sticking out here and I'm probably going to trim that off, but looks like it's going to work. So I'm going to pull the trigger in. All right, so now we can see where the notch needs to index. So I'm going to go ahead and mark. I'm actually going to mark a little bit past the notch so that when I'm cutting, I have room for error and I can make fine adjustments from there. But that's where we need to notch. And we want it as far back as possible so we get as much clutch travel on the lever as possible. Alright, so we got our little index mark there. Now I'm just going to cut a notch straight into this, probably go about halfway through. There we go. And that should do the trick. Looks like I'll need to sand a little bit more off around the screw because she's a little sticky. Okay, so I got a little too much around the hole right here so that when the bolt goes in, the shoulder's rubbing against this. So I'm just going to take this little grinding stone and clean this up a bit. All right, that'll work. Hope this helps you guys out. See you in the next one.